Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arash's World. Today we have a special guest here on Arash's World, and it's Kamilah Stevenson. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to be here. Feeling good, feeling well. I can't
Feeling good,
complain.
feeling well. That's awesome. Yeah, how would you briefly introduce yourself to our audience? What would you say? What are some of the salient points of Kamilah?
Yeah, so I am a health coach. And so I basically teach my clients how to, and my audience in general, how to reverse chronic disease and also how to be preventative. I usually take a very in-depth angle at all kind of areas that include biological individuality, meaning that there are so many contributing factors to a person's well-being. And so I'm generally a person who looks at all angles because we are uniquely built as individuals with different history and different makeup and different age factors. And, so I really try to take a full approach to wellness. And I love exploring all of these different options and all of these different variables and variances that contribute to healthy living. And that's kind of the approach that I like, and that's the approach that gets the greatest results. I think I'm very science driven, but ultimately my aim is to really educate, not just bring information, but bring education to how to live as healthy as we can as individuals and have our highest quality of life live throughout as we're here so that we can fulfill our purpose. Yeah.
I love it. So a holistic outlook, and you're not trying to pigeonhole people into
Right.
like one aspect. It's looking at the whole thing, and I think that's
Yeah.
really what's often missing when we look at, for example, when we go to the doctors. Their view is, I might say, limited because they're
Yeah.
focusing only on one aspect, or maybe just the body, and not
Right.
looking at the mental aspect of it, or the emotional, or the spiritual. So we're much more than just our body, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is that a lot of times, when we go to the doctor and we're looking at solutions to certain factors that are happening within our life, like for example, pain, which actually speaks to us and tells us that something is wrong. But when we go to, for example, the doctor, we're just kind of used to the process of conventional medicine that usually just tries to get rid of the symptoms or suppress the symptoms, and we still leave the culprit very much so in action with what is happening with our bodies. And sometimes we progress to get even worse as time go on. Now, one thing that I really feel like as a whole that we haven't got a chance to really dive into are strictly just biological factors, and that includes the brain. And so a lot of the problems that we seem to be having, on a day-to-day basis with our well-being. Because when you mentioned the mental aspect, we look at it as just we're talking about psychological and emotional things, but we're also forgetting that our brain plays a huge role in some of the choices that we make and some of the behavior patterns that we have. And outside of really beginning the process of healing our nervous system, we're still going to be stuck in a cycle of not being well, not just physically, like as you mentioned, but mentally and emotionally not well. And a lot of times doctors do not really investigate to find out what is happening. And I'll give just a quick example. Like if you go to the doctor and all of a sudden you have high cholesterol, they immediately want to put you on drugs, but they don't realize that there's a lot of investigation questions that you can ask somebody as to why their cholesterol was high. For example, if they just experienced a death in the family, or if they just had a injury to their body, cholesterol is there to reduce inflammation. So there may be a number of reasons why your cholesterol is high that has nothing to do with you needing to be put on medicine, and so it could just be grief that you're dealing with, but the doctor won't even take a moment and say, hey, have you had a loss in the last month? Something as simple as that. And so there is a digging that needs to take place with individuals as it pertains to their well-being, a digging that doctors don't usually have the time to do. And so what I try to do is I try to get people to have what you just call self-awareness. Try to be aware of different things that could be going on in your life that brings you to these points, because if we continue to depend on doctors and outside people, even psychiatrists, they give medicine and they do not do brain scans. These are experts in the brain industry and they don't even look at the brain. So how can you trust going to a psychiatrist to get medicine for something that they never even took a moment to look at? And so they don't know if the brain has been damaged from being an alcoholic or whatever. And so if you give them medicine to suppress that and they're still drinking or they're still dependent, then it's still going to have the same problems. And so there's a lot wrong with the picture. And a lot of times it's easier to empower individuals themselves to take a closer look at what's happening with themselves than to try to get doctors and professionals to be on board, because there are other agendas in place that makes them take the approach that they take.
And probably
So,
also training. I mean, their training is also like they're focusing on certain things because that's what they've been taught to do, and then not
absolutely.
losing sight of the whole picture. And just what you're mentioning makes perfect sense, because
Yeah.
if your body's communicating with you and it doesn't have a voice to say, okay, I'm not feeling this, or this is too much stress for me, but it
Yeah.
shows itself in different ways of communicating. And
Yep.
exactly, so removing the symptom, the problem is still there. The root issue is still there. It's happening.
Yeah.
And you mentioned things that I have been suffering from, which would be high blood pressure and cholesterol and so on. And for me, it was really like I was pushed to take on medication. I didn't, and I said
Wow.
the issues are here. They are deeper than that, and they're mostly stress related. They're psychological. There are inflammation as well, which is your body telling you like, hey, this is not working well, and that's
Right.
kind of the body mind connection there. And once I got rid of those things, the stressors, and I just felt much more relaxed. And I went to have my blood pressure taken, and she's like, "How did you do it? You're fine, right?" And so, but what you lose the opportunity to deal with these things, and in a similar way, in terms of psychiatrists who give you the medication to deal with your anxiety, well, you
Right.
get rid of the symptoms, you don't feel bad, but the roots of the anxiety are still there unless you
Yeah.
really face them and deal with them.
Right, right. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that, there's so much depth in why we're experiencing certain things that we experience. And a lot of times we need what you call like psychological acupuncture. We need to release the
Mm.
stress
Yeah.
and that buildup of energy. And what people don't realize is that chronic stress is one of the main doors to chronic disease in general. High blood pressure, like you mentioned, cholesterol issues, all kind of autoimmune diseases. And as a matter of fact, usually when people are diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, a lot of times it comes right after some kind of event that's happened in their life that's just traumatic or something, and it opens up the door for that. And a lot of people don't really allow stress to be the contributing factor or the most contributing factor to some of these diseases. And so we need to release that energy and we need to heal our nervous systems. And a lot of people don't talk about that. We are constantly in modes of anxiety, and our brains are oftentimes stuck in trauma and traumatic situations, which, it does get the brain involved, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex involved. And if we don't aim to get ourselves out of this high beta mode that we're in all the time, where also, because one of the things that the amygdala does is it scans for danger. Okay. And if we've had like a traumatic situation that has occurred, for example, in our life, and we have emotions that's still connected to it, it's not the actual event that is taking place in the present. The event may have taken place in the past, but it's our emotions that's connected to that event that keeps us in the past. And so most of us are not even able to break past or beyond the past. It's almost like a cycle, like we're rehearsing the past over and over again. And although the traumatic situation has not occurred, it's still as if it is occurring in the present, because our brains are stuck there. Okay. And so when our brains are stuck there and amygdala is constantly searching for danger and warning, and, our brains are wired for disappointment and abuse and abandonment and, unworthiness and all of these different things, it causes our body to start to react and to release even certain hormones that start to build toxins in our environment, in our inner environment. And if we don't take a moment to like deal with some of that stuff and to get ourselves unstuck out of this high beta mode that we're constantly living in, this fight or flight mode, the sympathetic mode, then we won't, it'll be very hard for us to get out of disease, you know? And so we have to target that. And what a lot of people don't realize is that stress is not, some people look at stress as like this thing of a big event happening. No, stress is happening from the moment you wake up in the morning all the way to the moment you go to sleep at night. Like if you didn't get enough sleep at night, you're already waking up with a little bit of stress. When you have to take your kids and your grandkids somewhere, you're dealing with stress. When you have to pay bills, when you're going throughout your day with just regular routine things, stress is being accumulated. And the thing about stress is the same switch that turns on stress doesn't turn it off. You have to actually empower a total different system in your body called the parasympathetic system in order to start to detox. And that's when I talk about that psychological acupuncture. Is like you have to detox those stressors. You got to get into an alpha stage. You have to get relaxed. You have to, you know, deal with the trauma and deal with the things that have been built over time that connects your emotions to those events. And when you can stabilize your emotions and have the memory of it, but not the emotion connected to it, then that's where wisdom takes place. That's where you're free enough to make decisions. That's where the prefrontal cortex begins to be empowered, because that part of your brain cannot be empowered if you're stuck in traumatic situations. If you're about to run from a tiger or something, you don't have time to slow down, to think creatively, to connect with love. So this stuff starts to even ruin relationships. That's why there's a lot of mental illness and not being able to connect. And, you know, you got to think about everything that's happening with a lot of people. Every 14 minutes, they say someone commits suicide. Every 8 minutes, you know, a drug overdose. 50% of people will have some kind of mental illness at some point of time in their life. A quarter of women are on antidepressants, you know, 70% of people are overweight, you know, like there's so many things that are going wrong. And when I say overweight, I mean, because if you are, for example, overweight, then you have extra fat on the body that causes toxins. And so all of these environmental things that are happening in our inner world are affecting the way we respond and react to life, the quality of life. And these are just things that are completely, and food, even the way we eat, that can cause stress to the body. That can cause stress to the gut. There's a brain-gut connectivity that's happening that doesn't happen good if we're stressed out by the wrong foods and we got too much inflammation in the body. There is so much going on.
Yeah, and it's all
You know?
connected. But I see it like this. You mentioned switch, and I agree with you. It's like the switch is always on, and you never turn it off. That kind of mode of like fight and flight, and being anxious and being stressed. And it's like running a marathon daily, like every
Yeah.
moment. And it's like it wears you down, not only mentally, emotionally, but also physically. Like in that connection, and then we feel tired, we feel angry. And when people
Yeah.
are angry, I see them as quite unhappy. There's something causing that. There is a deep frustration that comes out as anger, and it's become
Yeah.
so common to express yourself in that way. But I see it as like a symptom for something's not going well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Something's definitely not going well. And there's just, again, a lot of people who have, you know, a lot of this stuff starts really from childhood, you
Mhm,
know, childhood environment.
mhm.
And the better that parents can create an environment for their kids, you know, to thrive and to have healthy emotions and even healthy aggression, you know, it starts there, and being able to cultivate that environment for them to do well, to react better in life. But again, once you have this systematic process of constant stress buildup from things that are happening, you know, from one season of life to the next season of life, and then not being able to have the proper therapy in place to be able to deal with some of this stuff, it just winds up, you know, having a toll on the entire body. And we see this all the time. And that's why we're seeing some of the behavior patterns. And then, you know, in a society where we are accepting of certain types of personality traits
Yeah,
that
I
are
agree.
not good, like, for example, that kind of like narcissistic type personality, you know, there's all these different type of personalities that are being formed. And a lot of it is even trying to hide from who the person actually is, because their identity has been broken along the process of these traumatic events, and they can't even come to cope with who they actually are themselves. And so we're dealing with almost like a identity crisis with a lot of people. And a lot of times it's very, very difficult to have this type of personality that is toxic. And I'm not necessarily blaming people for this. Again, it starts in the childhood and an environment, and there's so many factors that play a role, but it's very hard to try to make changes with the old personality. You have to almost become a different person in order to tackle some of these different things that are happening. You have to be a different person. You have to be able to make different decisions, have different behaviors, experience things differently, like have different experiences. And these different experiences will cause different emotions to happen. And that's when you start to see a bit of breakthrough. But change is very hard for a lot of people, especially when they're locked up in this stress mode. We have to be able to tap the parasympathetic. We have to be able to turn that switch on, calm ourselves down, heal our bodies and our brains in order to make the appropriate choices for our future and for our life. Now, that is very difficult when we live in a society where certain things are tolerated and certain things are being pushed. There's a lot of substance abuse. Think about what happened during COVID. Like, people have become alcoholic dependent. And so and that was just basically to cope with life. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever the substance is a lot of people have become like that dopamine effect, whether we're scrolling on social media all day, or whether we're sitting up on a video game all day. We're trying to escape something. There's such a buildup that is too much to handle for some people, that we're trying to escape it, because the body really do want to be free. Like, naturally, the body wants to grow and be free and can't. And so it'll use something to escape the current conditions of what the body and the mind is experiencing. And a lot of times people are looking for the outer world to affect the inner world. When we get to that conflict within ourselves, in our inner world, our health, whatever that looks like for people, we're always usually looking for something on the outside. And that's why people can scroll on social media all day looking at other people's lives. And then we haven't even hit the topic of where imposter syndrome starts to take place, where we start to put on a complete facade for the approval of other people. All of these things are all connected psychologically, biologically, physiologically. Like, they're all connected together. And I think if we're going to take a health approach, we gotta approach this from all different angles. And we definitely have to start with self-regulation of our stress levels and just our mindsets in general.
Exactly. So you actually, as you're talking, you're answering lots of questions that I was going to ask you. So you kind of like reading my mind in many ways. But I want to jump into what you're saying also socially, the mindset that we have, and always to be on the go, to work hard constantly. Don't take time off. Don't relax. Don't have fun, because that's seen as idleness or a sin, guilty pleasures. And I think the opposite, like the mindset exists in society, but not be driven by that, and be able to turn that switch off and say, okay, now is my time off. I get my Sundays off. I won't do any work. I'm not wasting time. Time is not money. Time is time. And that's much more valuable than money. And to have that space. But we don't, and when we don't do that, we feel guilty, and then we go and waste time on social media and TikTok, etc. So we really need to wind down and relax. And I think it's because it's not just ourselves, it's also our society that frowns upon that. So we need to be able to not be driven what others are saying and thinking of us, and just really be ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just kind of trapped in some kind of loop almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we're living at the pace of what we have accepted as the norm. And a lot of that is due to media, like, because media tends to push out
but we don't question it. We don't question
Yeah,
it, right?
we
That
don't.
critical thinking of like, wait a minute, I don't have to
Yeah,
be in that. I'm not on that hamster wheel. I can like step out
yeah,
and enjoy the sunshine. But we do
yeah,
have to ask ourselves that, is that really correspond with who I am and what I want to do? But we lose track of
yeah.
that. Yeah.
We do. That adrenaline kind of gets us going.
Yeah.
And remember, when adrenaline is going, and when we're in that high mode, that high energetic, like fast paced mode, you don't have the ability to create a different outcome for yourself. You don't have the ability to predict the future or to predict what's happening in that moment. You kind of just jump on board, and a part of your brain that is the creative, intelligent, high level, robust type thinking, that part that almost regulates, the decisions that we make, the healthy decisions that we make, and is almost like the executive for our lives, and be able to control that part of our brains. Or that part of our brain is usually shut down when we're in that
Mhm.
excited,
The
over
rational
energetic.
thinking part, the one where we can relax.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like when you see crowds rioting and things like that, and then you happen to be in that culture. Like, some people don't have the brain capacity or the thought processing to be able to say, I don't want to be a part of this. Like,
Yeah,
most people just kind of jump on board,
yeah,
and they're like, yeah,
yeah.
because they're looking for that rush. They're looking for that next, exciting dopamine type place, because that's what we become dependent on,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of the drama and the confusion and the conflict, and a lot of that, we're almost addicted to that stress. We're addicted to stress,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
we're addicted to the emotions that stress bring. So we're constantly on the lookout for other situations that bring us highly stressful moments, because we're addicted to the outcome, that end product, that emotion that we feel from the stress and the excitement. And so we're not able to take a moment and make clever decisions like we really need to. I remember speaking to a man who moved to New York. I met him at a restaurant, and he was explaining how, like, when he moved to New York, it was so fast paced. And he wasn't usually that type of person, but he got so indoctrinated in the culture that he remembered going. He said he knew he needed to move when he went, like, into a fast food place. It might have been McDonald's or something. And it was a long line, and he rushed to the front to try to pay somebody to, like, skip the line and
Oh my
move
God,
in
yeah.
front of everybody. Now, that's not like, that doesn't represent high levels of emotional intelligence, to do that to somebody who's been sitting there waiting. But you so quick and rush to get up out of there. You want to pay your way through. And he said it was causing him to just be a different person.
Mhm,
And so once he recognized that, he said, I have to come out of this environment. And
mhm,
so, like you mentioned, it's the environments
mhm,
that are cultivating this high stress moment, that we repeat over and over, and we become really addicted to. It's the environments that we're in. And so we have to start to wonder, are these environments healthy for us?
mhm,
Are they contributing to the stress load and to my lack of well-being? Like, the company that you're with makes a huge difference. If somebody wants to get healthy, they need to be around the healthiest person they can handle at that moment, and allow the culture to impact them, because there's nothing greater than culture. Your will cannot not overdo culture. Once you put yourself in an environment, it is very hard. You can't stop doing drugs if you're still hanging around people who are doing drugs, for
mhm,
example. Like, if you're hanging with that party crowd, and they're addicted, and they're doing substance abuse, and they're self-sabotaging, if you get in that environment, you can't expect to get in that environment and make healthy decisions. You just can't. And so one of the greatest things, I feel like one of the quickest things that a person can do to get well is to change their environments.
mhm.
Like, that
But
is a
sometimes it's harder said than done, and
it
sometimes
is,
you
it
are
is.
stuck in a job that you say, I do have to continue, right? But I
Yeah,
think it's really like that we have much more control than we think in many cases. And
we
so
do.
it's also
Yep.
our reaction to others. Like when society says I'm a workaholic and they say it as being proud, that's a badge of honor.
Right.
And I say, I'm sorry for you. I feel
Right.
sorry for you because you are addicted to work, which is
Yeah.
harmful for your
Yeah.
body and your mind and so on. But
Yeah.
it's kind of having that approach, and again, for ourselves, you can be in
Right.
your environment, but say there are things. I mean, when I was younger, I never smoked. I never started smoking, but I did have friends who would smoke and
Oh
they'll
yeah.
drink and smoke, and they did offer me cigarettes various times. But I said, no,
Wow.
this is not for me. I mean, I know you guys
Yeah.
are doing it, but I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
like it because it makes me cough, and I
Yeah.
don't like to have yellow teeth and so on. And
Yeah.
so I think that that choice we have, even
Yeah.
if we're in an environment that is toxic or harmful, to say,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to stay out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And definitely like the environment is like the first stage for somebody who's a baby who when
Mhm.
I say a baby, a person who just who don't have that control yet, because that has to be either cultivated inwardly where we can pull on the resources that are within us,
Yes.
and or either it is connected to the fact that we've identified a pain that that particular behavior will cause, and we don't want to experience that pain. But for some people who haven't been able to experience pain enough to walk away from something, or somebody who don't have those inner resources, for somebody like them, maybe the environment would affect them more. But ultimately, you're right. We have to get to a point where we can be in the environment and we are still very much so motivated and inspired by what has been built within us. And that's the point that we need to get to. And that's why things like meditation, slowing ourselves down, recovery, making sure that we're okay and that we're well, that we're detoxing emotionally, and that we're getting the help that we need, and we're taking the nature walks and the Epsom salt baths and doing things that we enjoy and we love, so that we can experience what life looks like under our healthy decisions, and under our control, where we're slowing ourselves down a bit and we're able to make those choices. And so we can't escape. I mean, this world there's a lot going on right now, and so it's not like we can just like escape or a blink of an eye and be transformed somewhere else. So ultimately, you're right, we have to get strong enough to be able to be in this culture, be in this world, be in the environment of the fast-paced, excitement of everything that's going on, but still make clever, intelligent decisions that help us to lead ourselves. And if we are leaders, that help us to lead others and inspire others. This is why I don't, I can, like with social media, you don't want it to be your master. You want to be able to leverage it the way you need to leverage it, but you don't want it to master and lord over you. And whatever you got to do to create that management and that healthy self-regulation, you have to do. But ultimately, you want to be able to take some of these resources that we have, and you don't want it to like damage you. You want to be able to leverage it and not let it damage you. And so that's why it's very important to, to teach people these mechanisms that we put in place. And that's why I love meditation. I can't say that enough, because it helps you to quiet the, the noise, the outside noise, and really tap and connect, first of all, with yourself. You got to know yourself. You got to know the things that you're strong at, the things that you're weak at, the things that you should do and you shouldn't do. Intrapersonal and interpersonal relationships are very important. And some of us don't even have relationships with ourselves to be able to self-regulate. And that's what we really need to get people to. And that's one of the aims of emotional boost and emotional intelligence, is self-awareness and self-regulation. And that's something that a lot of people don't have, that we really need to help to educate people on. How do we get there? How do we get there to be able to self-regulate and to self-reflect and to manage ourselves a lot more efficiently and effectively than what we've been doing, So it's a lot of work, but I mean, one step at a time, right?
Exactly.
That's why we're here,
Yeah.
empowering. That's why you're here, teaching and educating people on how to do that and
And
looking
not to
out for
be hard
signs.
on oneself. It's like you take
Yeah.
that one step, or you were 5 minutes without social media. That's an accomplishment. Now try 10,
Yeah,
but
it
kind of
is.
gradually, instead of
Yeah, those
forcing
small
yourself
steps.
a different way.
Yeah.
A couple of things I want to mention. We're
Yeah.
running out of time here, but one thing, and it's very like North American culture when we look at fast food. the idea of
Oh
food
yeah.
needs to be fast. And we have other cultures, you know, the French, the Italians, who like see
Yeah.
like food as like a celebration, something you eat calmly
So
outdoors with
true.
your glass of wine. And
Yeah.
we're driven, right? And when you
Right.
mentioned the person who's like in the fast food restaurant wants to go first, I mean, that is a sign
Right.
that something's wrong there with that
Right.
person and with the culture. So just the term fast
Absolutely.
food, apart from it being like
Yeah.
really harmful for your health, it's like, why does it have to be
Yeah.
prepared quickly? Take your time to enjoy
Yeah.
it in a restaurant, you know, sit, relax,
Yeah.
have a chat with someone. But no, we like gulp it
Yeah.
down and we run out and rush out. And I think that needs to
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
or we need to change. I mean, that will still
Yeah. Yeah.
exist, but occasionally it's
That's
fine, but also have your time where
yeah.
you
But
enjoy your meal.
it's that, yeah, it's that shortcut. It's that shortcut. That's what we're doing. We're shortcutting life, shortcutting
And you're
relationships,
shortcutting
and
yourself in the process.
shortcutting yourself,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and like you said, like food is and has been known traditionally to be something that is social, that is,
Mhm.
you know, where you're sitting around the table with the family and you're
Yeah.
eating and you're having connection and you're having an increase of, you know, love and just, you know, communication with the people that you love.
And even
And
preparing your own food, of being like, this
yeah,
is
you're
my food that
preparing
I
it.
created for everyone. That kind of sense of love
Yeah,
that we lose out on when we go to fast food restaurants.
we do lose out on it. And that's that fast-paced world that doesn't allow you to be open and connected. Because remember, you have to slow yourself down in order to open up and connect with one another. And that is what sitting at the dinner table or having a meal together does. But when you're in a rush and you're shortcutting the meals and the time, you know, I need to chop time in
Yeah,
half and
yeah,
get, you know,
yeah,
and this is like everything's so quick and fast, and you know, we need to shortcut everything. And when we get stuck in that cycle of doing how we do one thing is how we do everything, you know. And so we got to look at how we eating, you know. Is it fast? Is it quick? Are we shortcutting it? Because it's how we do everything, you know, in life. And those certain behavior patterns, they are subconscious. They start to creep in everything
yes,
in your life.
yes,
You start to want everything quick. You want
yeah,
money quick. You
yeah,
want, you
yeah,
know, you go play the lottery and just everything is about getting stuff quick and taking shortcuts and not
yeah,
putting in the work to get there. And you want health quick. And so we look at the medicine and the, you know, everything that can shortcut it. When
yeah,
at the end of the day, there's a system, there's a framework that works to this, that works in a very healthy way. And it is one step at a time. It is one day at a time. Like you said, 5 minutes. Okay, let's
yeah,
come off.
yeah,
Let's start to regroup and let's start to re-regulate things and recalibrate
yeah,
things
yeah,
so that we can get back to a balance, because that's what life is about. It's to be enjoyed, and it's to have relationships and to have well-being and be around for your kids and your grandkids. And you know, it's about so much more than what we're making it about. And we're shortcutting, almost like, I don't know if you ever seen that movie, I think it's Click,
I
with
haven't seen that one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
seen it.
like
Yeah,
it's like he's got this remote control. Adam Sandler has
yeah,
this remote control and he's speeding through life past moments, and he realizes when it's too late. Like, I've sped past important moments in my life with my kids. And that's a lot of time. That's what we're doing when
mhm,
we go to
mhm,
fast food restaurants, and when we, you know, when we're constantly on social media, and we're, you know, just in this warps of like everything is speeding up and, you know, moving fast, and we don't have a moment to really enjoy and to reflect
yeah,
the things that we even need to be grateful about. Some people don't even have the time and the mental capacity and the attention span to sit down and to just ponder on the things that they're grateful for in life.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and when we get to that point where you can't sit down for a moment and your attention span is not there, yeah, we got to reevaluate the things that we're doing day to day that participates in this cycle, and then this toxic behavior pattern that we have, that we're pushing towards everything in our life. You know, it's just not good, and we got
yeah,
to address it. So conversations like these, I love it, because
yeah, me too.
it's
Yeah,
wiring and
and
gets
and
people.
just quickly here, I want to finish up on moderation because you mentioned balance. I think that's really important. And so
Yeah,
when we see like stress or anxiety as something bad, I disagree with that because if we're
right,
too
right.
relaxed, we don't get up. You won't go out to pick up your daughter, and I won't work, and so on.
Right.
So I think we need to find that sweet spot, that perfect balance
Yeah.
between like just enough stress but not too much that's overwhelming, just enough anxiety so you perform well,
Yeah.
so you do care about the outcome, but not being
Yeah.
overwhelmed by it. So what
Yeah.
how can people contact you? How can they find you? Your website, you have programs, you have courses as well, is that correct? How can people contact you?
Absolutely. So I am usually the best way to contact me would be on social media under Kamilah Stevenson. So Instagram at Kamilah Stevenson, they can DM me. Also, I have a website, KamilahStevenson.com.
Mhm.
I'm also on Facebook under my brand name, which is Healthy and Better. But ultimately, my name is under and attached to any social media outlet. So they can find me there, or like I said, KamilahStevenson.com, and they'll get all the information that they need. And I just want to also say for you, like, thank you so much for this conversation. And I agree with you. We got to find that moderation because we do need a little anxiety. It helps us get going because there's some things we got to do in life, of course. So that medium beta level is really good. And that healthy stress, like exercise, for example,
Yeah,
is really good for our bodies. And so I
yeah.
just love this conversation to end with that moderation, not too extreme on either end will, be a healthy approach to, embracing a life of well-being, so, but
Wonderful.
thank you so much for this.
Yeah, thank
It's
you for
been a
being in
joy.
Raj's world. Kamilah
Oh
Stevenson,
yeah,
you're a
I'm
counselor,
excited.
healthy lifestyle expert, author. Thank you so much for being on Raj's world. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much too. You too.